So officially welcome to the Refined Cooks Let's Cook interactive online cooking class. So I am Marlene, and normally, if it wasn't COVID and we're not sheltering in place, my husband Jeff and myself host a cooking class party. So we do it out of our home. We are in Dedham, which is in pretty much Greater Boston, and Eve has been to our cooking class, so we do, you know, 3-4 course meals. It's an elegant dining thing. But unfortunately, we are sheltering in place. So we have to do the second best, which is cooking interactively. So our mission at Refined Cook is to promote a slow and sustainable lifestyle by teaching healthy and gourmet cooking. And healthy is an underscore there because I tend to talk a lot about ingredients. I'm very specific about ingredients, brands sometimes, because they're all different. The Let's Cook classes are basically, you probably know, I release menus Fridays. It's based on available ingredients, what happens to be on hand. I'm trying to use up a lot of stuff in our pantry, which has been kind of hidden behind jars. I'm sure you might know that problem when it's all behind, you don't see it, and 2 years later it's like, oh. So anyway, that's one of the things I'm doing. So today's menu, oh wait, I forgot to mention also, we're trying to raise funds for Feeding America. So if you are in a position to do so, please donate. Everyone's going to be getting an email afterwards anyway, where we send you the links and all that for this. So today's menu, we are going to be doing 2 different dishes. They are not related, and they're both main dishes. The reason why we're doing 2 is because while the first one is baking, which is a lasagna, we're just going to be shooting the breeze here. So we might as well cook something else, which is why the second one is going to be a chicken adobo. I'm going to talk a lot about that later as we go along. And I see Anna. Welcome, Anna. Yay!
Hey.
Anna, are you going to cook with us?
I'm making the chicken. I just couldn't get the lasagna stuff going.
Oh, no problem. So I was just explaining that this is not meant to be eaten at the same time. They're two completely different dishes. In fact, the chicken adobo is for tomorrow's meal, and in fact, it will be better. We tend to cook that in the Philippines a day ahead anyway, because it's one of those things that really tastes better the next day. We're gonna have a lot of downtime in between, and so I will explain more as we go. And then for those who just joined us, you know, feel free to just ask me as I go on. This is interactive, so I welcome questions, although I do love talking. But anyway, okay, so we're gonna start off with the lasagna. Now, I didn't have milk in the house, so I did say I was gonna make almond milk in class. I'm just gonna start with that. And also to preheat my oven to 375. Now, I am preheating at 375 because that's what my lasagna box says. You have to follow the instruction of your noodles. And I've never tried this particular brand because it's one of those things that I've had for 2 years. In fact, according to this, it's already best before 2019. So I just want to get rid of it because it's been hanging out in the pantry for years. So I follow the instruction. We'll see what it's like. It's gluten-free. So there is another brand I actually use. So you will see how this compares. So today's lasagna, we are gonna make a Mornay sauce. Now, that's a really cool thing to learn because we are gonna start off with a bechamel, which is the mother of all French sauces. So it's a really good thing to learn. And why it becomes a Mornay is when you add cheese, boom, that's Mornay, okay? So we're gonna start off with the almond milk. All we're gonna do, so I have a Vitamix, and the Vitamix is it's a power horse. So you can make almond milk in a regular blender, but I am almost sure I read somewhere that you will have to soak your almonds overnight because this is really, really powerful. So this will definitely, you know, get all the fibers out, but it won't get it out. Sorry, it'll really crush it so it's smooth. But I think I'm almost sure I read if it's a regular blender, you'll have to do the other step first. So all I'm doing, I have 3 cups of water here, 1 cup of almonds. This is how easy it is to make. If you want a sweetener, I used to put 3 tablespoons of maple syrup or agave. I stopped using agave, but anyway, I also reduced my sugar intake a lot. So I actually don't normally sweeten, or once in a while I'll put a little bit. The 3 tablespoons I've found is really good. I'm just going to shift the camera to the front. Okay, so all we're going to do is just okay, and then I have a bowl with a strainer, and importantly, I have, this is butter cloth. Butter cloth is it's finer than cheesecloth, and that's because I like my almond milk to be smooth. So I just basically line it and I'll pour it, and then that's all she wrote for almond milk. And this is, believe me, better than anything store-bought. It doesn't have carrageenan and guar gum or anything else they put. I'll just show you here. Okay, then that's it for this. We'll put this here first, we'll clean later. I just want to show you that. Obviously, if you have milk at home, go use your milk. So this is it. It's basically just, it's heavy, it's straining. I help it out sometimes by just squeezing it. And anyway, and then I put them in bottles, and that's my almond milk. But I'm going to use this later for our bechamel that becomes a Mornay. Okay, so that's gone. We will just wait for that later. I'll put this here. Okay, next. We are going to start the preparation for the lasagna. So I'm going to show you first the ingredients. So I said we are going to be using, if you saw the menu, we were going to use the leftover, these are pork loin, these are baby back ribs, also known as pork loin ribs, which I was grossly mistaken because I would have preferred to keep that intact. So I shouldn't have used it. So instead, well, I did cut a little bit because I already committed to using the leftovers. So I will use that. And I will also add, oh, we are Facebook Live. Yay, it's coming out. My husband's showing. Yeah. And I'm going to augment it with, these are leftover Brussels sprouts and like all sorts of roasted vegetables. So yeah, I'm going to mix these two. These are both leftovers. This is spinach that was frozen, organic spinach that was frozen. I thawed it, and very, very important, you have to strain and remove all the liquid. Unless you want a swimming lasagna, you need to drain very, very well your frozen spinach. This is the noodles. it's really weird because these are gluten-free, as I mentioned. The instructions said boil for 4 minutes and then bake, but they also said you can actually bake it straight. I don't trust it when it has instructions that are so completely contradictory. So let's hope that it all becomes okay. And then I'm using tomato sauce to go with it. So that's pretty much what's gonna go into the lasagna. We'll talk about the chicken and other ingredients when we do the chicken adobo. So what we're gonna be doing is basically layering. Oh, the other thing that's important, of course, I have my Parmesan cheese and also this is cheddar cheese, okay? So we're gonna start off with making the bechamel sauce. And the bechamel sauce, as I said, is the mother sauce. There are five basic sauces in France, and bechamel is the mother of all 5. So the bechamel, you're gonna need milk, flour. Forgot to mention I have flour. So milk, flour, butter, and then I do have some spices. You don't have to put it, but I do like in bechamels. I like nutmeg, I like cinnamon, and I have cloves. So I will also make sure we have that. So start off with a saucepan. We are gonna melt some butter. So basic ratio is if you're gonna use 2 tablespoons butter, use 2 tablespoons flour. So 2 tablespoons is about, a stick is 8 tablespoons. So basically 1/4 of a stick. So about this way, we don't really measure. You don't have to because this is something you can adjust. And since I have 2 tablespoons of butter there, I'm gonna get 2 tablespoons of flour. We are gonna brown the flour a bit. And meanwhile, so here's the milk. I'm just gonna squeeze out some. Actually, you'll see it. So here's already some of the milk. And I haven't even pressed the almonds. This is already what came out. So meanwhile, okay, it's time to put the flour. So flour is a thickener. And what we're making right now is what's called a roux. A roux, R-O-U-X, is basically the paste where once it becomes a little bit thick, we add the milk. And this is an amazing sauce to learn because it's really something you can do to make something really creamy. Okay, so I'm just sort of toasting that. Meantime, because I'm still browning that, we want to have some either grated or chopped up cheddar, because when that becomes a sauce or when that's ready, we want to be able to put this in. Okay, so, but we don't have to do it yet. We'll toast this first. Well, actually toasting is not the right word. All we're doing is kind of removing that flour taste, just a tad. And then, that's pretty much okay. I'm just gonna add some milk. Probably that's about 1.5 cups. So I'm just eyeballing because it's how much I wanna go in our lasagna. Now this is gonna thicken, and then it will even be thicker when we add the cheese. Actually, I think let's do more. Yeah, that's probably fine. And while that's thickening, as it heats up, so you want to make sure it's just simmering, okay? So your fire is on low. And might as well start seasoning. So I have a nutmeg grater, because nutmeg is really nice with creamy stuff. So anything that has milk, I tend to add nutmeg. It warms, it's a warm flavor. And because we're talking about warm flavors, I'm also going to use cloves. These are optional, okay? But why not? This is powdered clove. And also cinnamon, powdered cinnamon. And we are going to salt it as well. Some people don't call for it, but you know what? I like it a little bit salty. Plus, when you have the cheddar cheese melted in, that's going to be really nice. Okay. So meanwhile, I'm going to slice up the cheddar cheese. So let's see. So cheddar cheese, when you're adding it in, when you're adding this in your roux, you don't have to really grate it. I'm just lazy, you know, you could actually grate it, but because it's gonna melt in anyway, I'm just gonna roughly chop. Now I am a jazz musician, so I tend to be very careful. I always talk about this in class. When it comes to knives or anything sharp, I'm always like careful. So anytime you're slicing something, make sure your fingers are away. We're not doing onions or anything today, so we don't have to show any fancy knuckle kind of guard. But you see, I'm still very ginger about slicing. Okay, all we want to do is make it small enough so that it's easy to melt. Okay, so there's no particular guideline. So obviously if you grate it, that's even better because it's already really slow. So let me just tell you what's happening. So we are going to be layering the lasagna. You have layers of the noodles. You have layers of the Mornay sauce. You'll have the spinach and also the other leftover meat and vegetables that are going to go in between. And you'll have tomato sauce that's also going to be rounding up the whole thing. It is important to cover your noodles with sauce because the instruction was 4 minutes to boil, but that's basically just parboiling it, meaning you're giving it a head start. But the actual cooking will happen the next 40 minutes. That's how long it's supposed to be cooking, 40, 45 minutes. All right, let's go back to our stove. We just want to finish this before we start the layering. I don't know if you can see. Okay, let's see. I will use a spoon so you can see how thick this is already. Okay, you can see that, and that's still thickening, and that doesn't have the cheese yet. Now the Parmesan, I did not forget, the Parmesan will be the last thing, and that's so when we broil it, you get a golden top. Okay, I'm gonna show you again what this looks like. Look at this, it's already quite viscous, right? And this is one of those things, if you think it's too thick, add more milk. If you think you want to have more of the other stuff, make it cheesier, make it more buttery, it's easy to adjust. I try not to adjust the flour too much afterwards because then, you know, the point of cooking it at first was to sort of remove that flour taste. But I find that it's not a big problem anyway. Now, I think I want actually more bechamel than that. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of the milk. You see, it's no cut and dried rules. There are some sites that say you really have to heat up your milk, and ideally that's the case, but you know, so many things are flexible. Okay, now I think I'll just taste it. You want to taste what you're doing. This is one of those things that it's easy to adjust. Okay, hardly I'm gonna put the cheese in next. So right now, this is bechamel. You could stop there, but we're making it Mornay. And Mornay means we just add the cheese. So we just got fancy here. See, so. And we'll just make sure that melts in. And always stir it. Again, it's on low. My heat is on low. I'm stirring. And I think I want even more volume. I'm adding more milk. You know, you're basically getting a super creamy lasagna. Now, of course, all that milk that I just added still needs to thicken, so you really just have to stir it in. And then after that, that's pretty much done. But let's give it a few. Oh yeah, let's taste it because I added cheese. Let's see if we want more or not. You know what? I think I want a little bit more cheese. Just a little bit more. Sorry, I didn't change the camera angle. Just went straight into. All right, just add that. Sure, I get everything. Go. So this is what happens when you're cooking on the fly with no measurements. You basically have to taste as you go, see what the texture's like, if you're happy with it. I am looking for a thick sauce. So if you imagine that you want this creamy thick layer, so how thick you want it is basically how thick you can make it. So that's open. There's no real right or wrong, although, you know, what's the point of having a runny sauce? You know, you want this to be thick. Ooh, okay. Now, when that cools down, that also becomes thicker. Okay, so, all right, I think that is super. So let's show you what that looks like. This is not super thick. That's just a little bit. It's just gooey. Almost makes me tempted to add flour again, but no, we're fine. Okay, we are gonna layer. So I have lasagna pan. So let's get that out of the way. This was hot, so I'm just gonna put this on top. Okay, so let's get our stuff together. We have the noodles. We have spinach, the pork. I'm only using the semi-shredded ones. And our tomato sauce and vegetables. We're not going to use all. We're just going to see how much we need of everything. So we'll start off with tomato sauce. Remember what I said? We need to coat this because this needs to cook. This is not going to cook on its own if there's no liquid. So let's make sure that just gets spread out. And then we'll put the and you don't need to use all the noodles, but you know, if I can, I will use it because I don't want to have leftovers of this. Start there. So this is where it becomes fun because then you're just playing around. The only rule really is that you want to make sure the lasagna noodles are covered in sauce. So by the way, A lasagna is actually a kind of a casserole. You know, it's basically the casserole cooking is slow cooking. Casserole is actually it's from cassoulet. It's a French term, and it's the name of the container, cassoulet, and it's also the method of cooking, which is a slow cooking. So a lasagna is a type of a casserole, which is also why it lends itself to using leftovers. So something like this, maybe I'll put a little bit more sauce on top just to, maybe I'll use a wooden spoon to just coat that. Then, you know, let's play around with layers. Let's put a little bit of the bechamel because it's a sauce. So then that's all gonna help with cooking that. And let's see, maybe, let's see, spinach. So remember, it has to be dry. Now, spinach is just frozen spinach. It's a really, really handy thing to have because, first of all, when you buy, I mean, I do fresh and frozen, but if you've decided to cook down fresh, this is about let's see, 1, 2, this is about 2 pounds worth. Can you imagine how little that became? So you'd need a huge bag to get this quantity of spinach. So really the frozen is good. And also, we talked about this before, a lot of frozen stuff is much healthier actually because they're flash frozen, usually at the peak of harvest, and that means they're at their prime. Okay, so let's see. Let's put, maybe we'll put some, why not put some meat here? Actually, might have enough. You know, I'll put actually both the meat and the vegetables. You didn't see me wash my hands, but goes to show, I mean, I may not have mentioned it, but if you're cooking, please make sure you are washing your hands before handling raw and after handling raw food. Okay, so this is, yeah, I don't know how long we've had these roasted vegetables, but you know, they can keep for a while. Just yesterday we used up one that was 2 weeks old and it was pretty amazing. Okay, time to sauce up again, or let's see, sauce up, and then we're gonna use up this whole, jar. So, you know what? Let's add more of this. You wanna make sure you save some of the Mornay for the top too. Ooh. Okay, let's use up more of this. And if you have kids, this is something that I bet they would love. I don't think my mom ever made this, so I would just guess that it's going to be something really fun to do if you have kids. Okay, that's, I have to wash, my hands are super oily. Oh yeah, if you are, after you, if you boil your pasta and you take it up, make sure you oil it or else they're going to stick. And you don't want that because it'll be a pain to remove. Okay, here we go, making sure. It's like another layer of spinach is gonna be going in. Where's my spinach? And just color-wise, the spinach is pretty nice to add. Well, green, you know, it's just green against the red. Yeah, Christmas. Christmas or not, it's just nice to have color. So the Japanese talk about the power of 5, and it's not just 5 tastes, it's also 5 colors, it's also other senses. It's basically involving as much of your senses as possible when you're dining and cooking. Okay, that looks gorgeous. Let's get more meat in. Why is my computer's doing weird stuff here, but I'm hoping it still looks good there. So there's some sauce here. That's good, you know, that's just like more sauce from the meat. That's just gonna add flavor. Let me use that up. What? Might as well. Okay, I'm just using up all that sauce. Okay, and this one I'm keeping. More of this. And then I'm picking out actually mostly just the Brussels, although I could use the others too. Okay, let's put the carrot in there. And then, as I said, don't feel compelled to use all the noodles. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But I'm trying. We'll see whether we actually will use it. I prefer anyway more of the actual yummy stuff, not so much that. Okay, sauce. Here we go. Okay, let me just check something. Something's going wild with my computer, my laptop. Why is this going weird? Let's see. Oh, I don't know what was causing that. All right. Look at that. Beautiful colors already. Okay, this is going to be the last layer.
Take a look at it.
Wow, looks like I'm actually going to make it. Let's hope we have enough of the sauces. Oh, hardly. Thank goodness I still have bechamel. Look at that. That's gone. Okay, that's done. So that means we're finishing up with the bechamel. Now it might be, I'm hoping I have enough of the liquid to cover. And if it turns out that the top is not going to be as cooked, then that's the case. But you know what? We'll see if we can smother that a little bit more. So and then I'm going to put spinach on top because it's nice to have that color. Let's hope that that is enough to get that all soft and yummy. Okay. Let's see, spinach. And then we're going to top it with Parmesan. And then we're going to cover this in aluminum foil in the oven for about 40-45 minutes. So what we're cooking here is really the pasta because all the other elements are already cooked. So that's why it's important to follow the instructions of your noodles. And you know, you don't have to, you're not married to lasagna noodles. If you wanted to use other pasta noodles or even grain, that's fine. As I said, it's a casserole. The only reason we call it lasagna is because we're using lasagna noodles. That's it. Okay, let's see. Get that out of the way. Wash my hands. So Parmesan. Next. Okay, I washed my hands, so This is freshly grated Parmesan. I use the Vitamix for this too. It's so much easier to grate using a blender or a food processor. So much faster. Plus, you know, every time you buy, when you buy cheese in blocks rather than pre-grated, you're getting it at the freshest. Once you buy the grated ones, that's already partially oxidized and you're not getting the most bang for your buck. Okay, that's pretty much it. We're gonna tin foil that. My oven doesn't say it's done yet, but that's okay. You can just go here. It's been preheating, but all right. So just cover. These guys can go away. Oh, actually, no. You want to heat it up because we're gonna broil this later. So make sure you're able to do that. All right, Alexa, set the timer for 40 minutes.
40 minutes, starting now.
Okay, that is, so I like making almond milk because it's tastier. I try to reduce also the dairy, you know, I do like my half and half in the coffee, but otherwise, if I'm taking milk, usually it's almond milk, and it's easy enough to make. So basically, you strain it, and I squeeze this because there's a lot of milk that comes out. See? And then it used to be that when I make this, I didn't know what to do with the excess meal. I'll show you that. But since the last maybe 8 years, I have been using it, making kale chips and crackers. So this whole process is very efficient because I can use everything. You see? So if you wanted to make other milks, this is a similar process, you know, cashew. I haven't actually done cashew milk. I've made cashew cream, and cashew cream, I actually don't even strain. I just use the whole thing. But if you're using milk, using nuts to make milk, you just want to make sure you have something like a butter cloth. You can order this online. I make cheese once in a while, and it's strange. You actually use butter cloth to make cheese, or at least the cheeses that I make, which is like mozzarella and ricotta. Okay, so see, there's a lot of stuff if it takes time. Plus, it's good exercise for your fingers. Now I'll show you what this looks like. It's the, okay, see. So this is basically, you know, it used to be the stuff that I would throw. That was the fiber. But now this is, see, all the fat has gone to the liquid. So when I make kale chips, I can just use this. It's really easy. Kale chips with this and apple cider vinegar, cayenne pepper. Whoa, very nice. Maybe one day I'll make that in class, because when I use this, I have to look for ways to use it. The other one is crackers. I make gluten-free crackers out of this with rosemary and Parmesan. But because the fat is out, oh, that's Alexa. Alexa, stop. Because the fat is out, I tend to add some freshly ground almonds too, just to add to the fat content. Okay, so I keep that. All right, that's it, and I'll just show you the milk one more time, and then I just use a little what do you call it, the siphon, and then I just like put it in my milk bottles. That's done. So let's check on the lasagna. This goes away. So unless we actually dig in, it's hard to tell whether the noodles cook. So, oh, yeah, no, they did actually. The top maybe not so much. But if the top is like this, that means the bottom will be definitely fine. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna broil this. Remember we had Parmesan cheese here? That's how you broil because that's gonna be golden brown. So let me do that now. And when you broil, don't use aluminum foil, of course. So let's set the broil. And never leave the kitchen when you're broiling because this is fast. In fact, I will ask Alexa, set a reminder for 2 minutes. Oh,
What's the reminder for?
actually, that was wrong. Cancel. Alexa, set a timer for 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll remind you in 2 minutes.
Okay, so we're broiling. We'll see how that goes. But that's going to be yummy. So there's a class that I have, which is roasted. It's my vegetarian class. It's roasted vegetable lasagna. And it's the same principle. The only difference is we use a lot of roasted vegetables. So it's roasted vegetables plus the spinach plus the Mornay sauce and of course the gluten-free noodles, or it doesn't have to be gluten-free, but it's a gluten-free class. And it's pretty amazing. So you can use it to you know, if you have leftovers, or if you have what I call basics and accessories. So we had a class a couple of weeks ago where we talk about basic foods, like anything grilled, anything. It's a one-step process usually. So roasted, grilled, they can all just be going in as a component of your lasagna or your casserole, and then it's pretty good. You just want to make sure every every ingredient you have is good, because the 50s and the 60s, which produced the casserole, which everyone laughs at because it's like, oh my God, they used to use canned tuna and green beans, and it was this mismatch of stuff, and then they held it together with Campbell's condensed mushroom soup. I mean, Campbell's was promoting this, so that was the idea of what the American casserole was, which was like, ugh. But if you use really good ingredients, the idea is great. It's like one pot cooking, but use good stuff, and it'll be good. The tomato sauce. I don't work for Rouse, but we love Rouse tomato sauce. We make our own. It's summer. We usually get like.
I'm reminding you. Cancel Alexa, set the timer for 2 minutes.
Okay, Alexa, thank you. I'm gonna check the broiler. But we can or make sauce out of like 50 to 70 pounds of tomatoes every year. Alexa, stop. She's going berserk on me. Okay, let's check on our broiled stuff. Not yet. Okay, let's give it a few more minutes. Alexa, set the timer for 3 minutes. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think my lasagna is okay. I'm turning it off. I'm just gonna show you. Can you see this? You don't see as much of it's more golden actually in front of me than it is, but I am going to, we'll let it settle, the liquids. And when it's a little bit cooler, I'll cut through it so you can see what the layer looks like. But, I mean, it does look appetizing, so I can't wait. That's gonna be dinner.